The veteran who refused the medal. Friday, 3:00 p.m. Portland was unusually cold for early October. The wind swept through the low rooftops of East Side neighborhoods, dragging with it brown gold leaves scattered across cracked concrete paths. Daniel Tran shut off the engine of his old Toyota Tacoma truck and sat still for a long moment, his hands on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the building in front of him. Veterans Resource Center of Multnomah County. It was a 3-story structure painted light gray with a slightly rusted metal sign, "Welcome home, soldiers." Daniel had walked through many military bases, many steel gates thick with the scent of war, but this was just a community center, and still, his chest tightened. He sighed. On the passenger seat sat an old leather bag, inside it a thick folder. His honorable discharge papers, military photos, letters of recommendation from an Army captain, and the engineering degree he completed after returning home. At the very bottom lay a faded baseball cap embroidered with 3rd Infantry Division, Kandahar Unit. He stepped out. An Asian man in his late 40s, average height, streaks of gray in his hair. He wore a dark khaki jacket, polished black shoes. He adjusted his collar, took a deep breath, and walked into the center's courtyard. The glass doors opened. Sort of. Daniel had to gently push them the rest of the way. A small bell jingled above, announcing someone's arrival. To the right, the reception desk. A young man, blonde, wearing a white shirt, had headphones in and was typing away. He didn't look up. Daniel waited. A few seconds passed. Then the receptionist spoke, eyes still on the screen. "Can I help you, sir?" "Yes, I'm here to check in. I called earlier this week. I was told to come today to submit my VA documentation." "Name?" "Daniel Tran, Army Engineer, 2003 to 2010. 2 deployments." Now the young man looked up. His eyes paused for half a second, scanning Daniel's face, then dropped to his chest. No insignia, no rank. A flicker of doubt passed through his eyes. "You have an appointment letter." "I spoke with a woman named Jenny. She said Fridays are open for walk-ins." "Sorry, sir, no walk-ins without DD 214 and prior verification. We've had some impersonators lately." Daniel nodded, placed his bag on the desk, and pulled out the documents. "It's all here. Discharge paper, ID, references, copies. I'll need to scan that and get someone to verify. Please wait outside." That last sentence was sharper, quicker, as if Daniel's presence was a burden. He stepped outside. A white woman in her 50s entered right behind him. She wasn't stopped. They greeted her. "Hi, Linda. You're early today." Another staffer rushed to offer tea. Daniel stood just outside the door. The wind picked up. He looked through the glass, thin as a pane, thick as a wall. His file bag still sat on the desk, and he was just a man waiting, invisible. Daniel didn't drive home. Instead, he headed south, crossed Ross Island Bridge, and turned onto a pine-shaded road. His destination, Willamette National Cemetery. He hadn't visited in nearly a year. But today, after leaving the Veterans Center without a name called, without a welcome, he needed to come. Not for comfort, but to reclaim a part of himself he feared was slipping away. He stopped before a simple, clean marble headstone. CPL, Miguel A. Ramirez, 1983-2007. Semper Fi, brother. Daniel knelt. His fingers traced the engraved name. The memories surged. Ramirez, radio operator, Mexican-American, the only child of a single mother in El Paso. In the unit he talked the most, and he was the only one who carried a photo of his mother in his chest pocket. June 2007. The sand hills west of Kandahar. Their team was patrolling a power line system when they were ambushed. An IED exploded under the lead vehicle. Miguel was gravely wounded, blood pooling beneath him. Daniel, then the lead engineer, dropped his rifle, ran down the hill, and used his own shirt to stop the bleeding. He carried Miguel on his back for over a kilometer through sporadic sniper fire. Miguel died on the operating table. But in the medical log, the doctor wrote, "Without Tran's intervention, time of death would have been 40 minutes earlier." Daniel stayed by the grave for an hour. The sky darkened. He whispered, "You'd laugh if you saw me today, Ramirez. Turned away like I was nobody. Not even a soldier. Just a stranger with a last name they couldn't pronounce." His faded cap blew off in the wind, landing beside the row of graves. Daniel didn't pick it up. He left it there, for a while, like a silent tribute. When he got home, there was a thick envelope waiting, from the Department of Defense. Inside, an official invitation. We are honored to invite Corporal Daniel Tran to Washington, D.C. to receive the Medal of Patriotic Valor for outstanding service and sacrifice in combat. Gilded frame, embossed lettering. But Daniel's eyes locked on the name at the bottom. Secretary of Defense, Edward L. Berman. He folded the letter and set it on the table. His hand still carried the dust of Ramirez's grave. And he knew something had stirred inside. Not anger, but a question long left unanswered. Do they really see who I am? Washington, D.C., 3 weeks later. Overcast skies. Thick November clouds muffled the sun, but couldn't block the biting cold that swept the plaza in front of the Pentagon. Daniel Tran stood alone in the VIP waiting area, wearing a dark gray suit, white shirt buttoned to the top. No uniform, no ribbons, just a small lapel pin, a broken-winged eagle. Inside the hall, marble floors, flags lining both walls, a mahogany podium carved with the national seal. National TV had cameras set. Defense officials, senators, veterans groups, and press were all present. The front row seats were for Medal of Patriotic Valor recipients, one of the nation's highest military honors. Daniel was invited to sit in the second row, between a retired colonel and a young female lieutenant from Alaska, but he stood in the back. In his pocket, the folded invitation. When the national anthem ended, the MC began announcing each recipient. Spotlights, applause. Then the fourth name was called. Corporal Daniel Tran, for his extraordinary courage during Operation Iron Dust, for saving the life of a fellow soldier under direct fire, and for exemplifying the highest standards of integrity and sacrifice. Applause thundered. Cameras zoomed in, but Daniel didn't step forward. He rose, but instead of walking to the stage, he walked toward the public mic at the base. Silence fell across the room. He adjusted the mic, looked up. His voice was calm, steady. Thank you for the introduction. I won't take much of your time, but I will take this moment. He paused. His eyes scanned the room, senators, generals, veterans, ROTC cadets, and others. People like him. Silent. Watching. I stand here today not to accept a medal, but to return a question. One I've carried for years. A stir moved through the audience. He continued. 3 weeks ago, I walked into a veterans center in Portland. I brought every document they asked for, but the door didn't really open. Not for me. Not when my name was Tran. Not when my face didn't match their idea of what a real veteran looks like. Total silence. Eyes shifting. I served. I bled. I lost brothers. I carried one of them on my back through sniper fire. His name was Miguel. He died. I lived. I don't wear that like a badge. I carry it like a stone. His voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from finally speaking what had remained unsaid for too long. But when I came home, I became invisible. I wasn't seen as a soldier, just a stranger, a technician, a delivery guy, a nobody, until today. Daniel pulled out the letter, held it up, then folded it and placed it on the podium. So I respectfully decline this medal, not because it means nothing, but because it means too much, to accept it while people like me still have to prove day after day that we belong, that we served, that we matter. The front row was dead silent. On television, anchors fell quiet. Every lens turned, not because he was a symbol, but because he just ignited a fire no one expected. Honor is not a medal. It's a door that opens. It's a name spoken without doubt. It's being seen, without having to shout. He bowed gently. No one stopped him. No applause. Just silence. Heavier than any celebratory cannon fire. Daniel walked toward the exit. But before reaching the door, a young Filipina soldier approached, eyes brimming with tears. Sir, thank you. That was the most honorable thing I've ever seen. Daniel nodded, placed a hand on her shoulder, said nothing, and the door behind him, this time, opened all the way. 3 days after the ceremony, the video of Daniel's speech began circulating online. Within hours, it had been shared millions of times. A hashtag emerged. That he deserved more. Then another. Hashfash with CU Tran. From all corners of the country, veterans, students, immigrants, even active duty officers, stories poured in. Stories about closed doors, silent dismissals, and invisible service. National TV replayed the speech, unedited. Military forums buzzed, not with strategy updates, but with a new question. Do we really see every person who served? Puma. A week later, Daniel received an invitation to speak at West Point Military Academy. At first, he planned to decline, but in the end, he said yes, not for himself, but for those who'd never been invited. When he arrived, the hall was nearly full. Over 400 cadets sat in silence. No cameras, no fanfare. Just a quiet presence as he walked to the podium. I didn't bring a medal. I don't need you to call me a hero. I just want you, future leaders, to understand one thing. Honor doesn't end on the battlefield. It begins when you return home, and you're still treated like a human being. He shared the Portland story. Not to accuse, not to demand, but to remind. Let honor live on, even in peace. At the end, a blonde-haired cadet in the front row stood. He raised his hand and said, "Sir, I never thought someone like you could be my commanding officer. Now, I hope one day you will be." Daniel smiled faintly and nodded, not just to the young man, but to an entire generation beginning to see people more fully. March of the following year. A soft rain fell across Oregon. Inside a small room beside the flag courtyard of the Portland Veterans Center, the very place that once turned him away, a quiet gathering was taking place. No cameras, no banners, no MC, just a few dozen folding chairs arranged in a circle, a couple of steaming coffee pots, and people sitting down. For the first time, not to verify documents, but to listen. The center's director rose and invited Daniel to speak. He walked slowly to the center of the circle. Same gray suit, same calm eyes. But this time, no more suppressed anger, only a steady conviction. I'm not here to talk about hurt. I'm here to talk about being seen. He shared the feeling of being treated like an outsider, of standing before closed doors, armed with the right papers, years of service, but missing the one unspoken requirement, the right face, the right name, the familiar accent. He wasn't there to complain. He was there to ask, how many people like me turned around and never came back? How many memories, how much value has been left outside these doors, just because we couldn't see each other clearly? From the back row, an elderly woman wept. She had once worked intake at the center. Her voice trembled as she said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Tran. We were never taught how to see you." Daniel approached her. No hug, no handshake. He simply stood beside her, a presence strong enough to say he wasn't there to reclaim anything, but to invite change. As the gathering ended, a young officer approached him. "Sir, your speech at West Point. It's now part of our formal training for new officers. They call it the lesson of silent recognition." That afternoon, Daniel returned home. He sat on the small wooden porch outside. Beside him, a photo of Miguel Ramirez, and the medal invitation, now laminated. On it, in white ink, he'd written, "Dignity doesn't need medals, it needs mirrors, so we can see each other clearly." Evening fell. The rain had stopped. In his hand, a warm cup of tea, and in his eyes, no longer the need for recognition, just the quiet readiness, in case someone ever knocks.